Hi, this is Tom, and we're going to deal with another foundations topic today that I think is really important for you as an owner operator. If you're running an independent shredding business and you don't understand this premise, then I have found that people struggle with the way to think about things. So it's really about the roles you play in your business and those owner roles that happen because you're an owner. And I'm going to assume in this case that you have created a corporation, LLC. You're not running as a sole proprietor at this point. You're actually to a point where you're functioning in that full role and or in that capacity as that kind of shredding or destruction business. And from there, what I want to do is look at these roles that you play in your business. And so I see with you as an owner operator within a corporate entity, you really hold three separate roles. The first role that you hold is this one in the center, which is the executive, and that means you're running the business. You build a business to run it, and a lot of times as owners, that's the place that we kind of think we sit and live and act. But a lot of times that's not truly the case. Many times in your day, in your week running this business, you actually play this role as an employee. It's a role that you regularly play. You step from the executive function in your business into an employee function. Granted, you're still the executive. Granted, this is still your business, but you move into that function or into that role because you have to in the business. But there's another one that you often forget as an owner operator, especially if you're growing and starting. But I've talked to companies that are in the $3 to $5 million range who still struggle with this premise that there's this other one over here called the shareholder role. And I want to explain these three roles to you because you're playing them all the time, but a lot of times you don't make the distinction, and thus it has a tendency to create some issues for you. So let's look at these. Let's start on the left-hand side with shareholder. So the role of shareholder is someone who has made an investment in a business and is seeking a return from that business. So if you're somebody who started a business and you went out and bought a truck, or you bought leased a warehouse, and you're either shredding paper, you're dealing with data destruction of any various type or variety, you made an investment, and that investment was either money, capital, time, whatever that was. As a shareholder, you said, I'm going to invest to create a shredding business. Now, that's really a function or a role that you play in your world on a regular basis that hangs there, and that often is misunderstood because so much of your time you're in this sort of middle section, being the executive. And the executive or leader or entrepreneur, as we often call it, in that role, you're actually you're the business authority. You lead this business, you take it forward, and you're responsible for generating results through the business, through the capital investment that you make, through the people, through putting those all together, through knowing how to actually connect all those dots to create revenue and profits for your business. That's the executive function. And then the employee function over here is really about actually doing responsibilities within the business, whether it be sales or marketing or operations or admin or finance or certifications or whatever roles that you play and responsibilities you have. That's the function of employee. But you as an owner operator are living in all of those all of the time. And often it's important to understand that behind those three roles are often some questions you need to ask. I'm going to start on the right-hand side here. An employee answers the question, what's my accountability? And accountability is, what do I own in the business in terms of what am I responsible for? What are the things that I'm accountable to produce in terms of goals? So what are my goals related to those particular roles? What goals am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to achieve a certain amount of leads, cost per lead? Am I trying to achieve a certain amount of new clients that are onboarded either as one-time projects, purges, or as recurring revenue? Am I responsible for administration? Am I responsible for bookkeeping? All of those accountable things have goals attached to them and likely have some kind of outcome attached to them. And when you think about it, you're doing those all the time. You're stepping into those questions and going, what am I supposed to be doing? What are the goals related to it? And how do I know I've achieved my outcomes? That's an employee function that you play. And then in the executive function, a lot of times what you're doing here is you're asking, is the business creating the results we need to create? That's a question you're asking. Is the strategy we're employing producing the result? And how do we need to adjust and adapt those strategies to do what we need to accomplish? How is the team operating in this environment? Do I have the appropriate people, team, staff to do the things that create the results to achieve the strategy, to achieve the objective? That's what you're working on as an executive. And then as a shareholder, what you're asking is this: is this business subject to any risk? Like, what's the risk profile for this business because I've made an investment on it? The second question a shareholder asks is the executive performance appropriate? Because often shareholders' job is to manage executive performance and define and determine executive pay. And the third question that a shareholder is asking is, am I getting the returns based on my investment? And if the business is not producing returns on the investment, that's of concern to the shareholder because it's a risk question. I've made an investment, but I'm getting no return. And so these are roles that you play as an owner in your business. And I think it's appropriate to know the questions that come as a result of this. So what are the implications of this? The first implication is, and I think this is critically important, and it's one that you should be constantly working through as an owner, which is this: in what role am I currently situated relative to the situation, the issue, the planning, the performance that's happening? And I like to see it as I put on a certain hat, and by putting on that hat, I actually think in a certain way. So when I have my shareholder hat on, I'm asking these kind of shareholder questions. How's my risk? How is my executive doing? And what are my returns on the investment that I've made? So when I put that shareholder hat on, I'm asking a certain type of question. When I put my executive hat on, I'm asking another set of questions. How is the business doing relative to what our strategy is? Are we producing the results we need? Where are we off? What direction are we headed? Are there issues that I need to address to make and move this thing forward? If I'm in my employee hat, the question I'm asking is, what do I have to do today? What's my task? What's my activity? What's my action? What am I trying to accomplish? And did I achieve that goal? Those questions are based on you understanding what role you're currently in and where are you. So the first question you need to ask is, what role am I playing and what role am I in this particular situation, right? What role am I in right now? Am I thinking and acting based on my shareholder role? Am I thinking and acting as an executive here or an entrepreneur here? Or am I thinking of my role as an employee? And a lot of times what I discover in my conversations with people is they're in the role that's not appropriate to the situation they're in. So many times, and I see this regularly, is I see owners of businesses living over here in the employee role, like never getting out of it. jumping from task to task to task, but asking and frustrated by the fact that there's no return on the investment. The return on investment has gone missing, but the problem is you live over here with this employee hat on all the time. You can't accomplish shareholder thinking from an employee perspective. So there are times you need to jump over into shareholder thinking and shareholder ways of viewing your business, such that you're asking about risk, how's the executive doing, and am I getting a return on investment? But you can't do that if you're acting like an employee. So you got to change your hat, put a new hat on, move over to that role and think from that role. I recommend that as a shareholder, you act like big shareholder businesses do, which is at least quarterly, you sit down and review what's happening from that perspective. Get that shareholder hat on. An executive, entrepreneur, leader of a business, that's a functional role that you're playing. And I feel like most of the time you're sitting in that seat. I've found that a lot of people move over here, especially smaller businesses, get stuck in the employee role. But as an executive, you're going, are we producing the results? Are we getting the outcomes that are necessary? Am I exerting and using my influence and authority to move this business in the direction it needs to head? So, shareholder, executive, employee, you play all of them. The question is, what role are you in this particular situation? And maybe then to question yourself as a mental model, is there another role I should be in based on the situation I'm questioning or asking? Now, if you've watched the previous Foundations video on the STOT framework, I think it's really helpful and important. And if you haven't, go watch that once you've watched this one. But understand this, that your roles as an owner operator in this business layer over the STOT framework. And shareholders kind of live outside of that. But remember, strategic thinking is about vision. Where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? And a shareholder kind of lives related to that. But an executive function is strategic and tactical. Strategic is what's the big picture, 3 to 5 years? Where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? Do we get the results we want from that? Tactical is how are we going to do that this quarter and this year? And then employee functions in the operational and transactional space of that business. So from that perspective, it's really important. And I'm just going to go back to this place here. A lot of times I work with companies who actually have two, like partners, husband and wife, could be two partners who came into the business together. This is the exact same thing. It doesn't change. Instead of one shareholder, you may have two equal shareholders, or you may have two shareholders, one being 60%, one being 40%. Doesn't matter. It's still appropriate and important for you to understand the distinction. And so if you're both working in the business, there are times you have to stop and move out of this role and at least quarterly jump into the shareholder side and ask the questions. Are we paying our executives appropriately? What kind of level of risk does my investment have in this specific business, and how does that function? And then thirdly, am I getting the return on my investment this year, this quarter? What's happening relative to that? So it's important to jump into that and then realize that you're constantly playing roles in your business that need to be activated, that need to be completed, that need to be done in order to fulfill the goals that are set out and the metrics and the results that are required from those positions. Now, all of that combined is really important to what I believe your success to be. And your way of thinking about it. So going back to the whole reason that we're doing in the Shred Coach these foundational sessions is to help you think through, like have mental models or beliefs or ways of thinking about things. And so this is another one that I think is really important as you think about your roles in the business. And by understanding these roles, then you can place yourself appropriately in them. I hope that helps. We'll talk to you soon.